Welcome to the March 3rd meeting of the City of Roseville Park and Recreation Commission. At this time, I'd like to have the secretary call the roll.
Nick Alexander.
Here.
Olive Bailey.
Here.
Jason Blessinger.
Here.
Renee Borowiak.
Here.
Kevin Hunsinger. Hunsinger, sorry. Hernandez.
That's creative. Here.
Sandra Pollock-Cushing.
Here.
Regina Shuchek.
Here.
And Jeff Short.
Here.
Thank you. At this time, we'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance. If Commissioner Hernandez would lead us in the pledge, we'd appreciate it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this time, I'd like to ask the Secretary to read the procedures for publicly addressing the Parks and Recreation Commission tonight.
Citizens addressing the commission during public comment are asked to approach the podium and are limited to 3 minutes unless extended by the chair. It must be regarding items that are not listed on the agenda and are within the city jurisdiction. The Brown Act does not permit any action or discussion on items not listed on the agenda. No action will be taken on items addressed under public comment.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to open the hearing for public comment. Is there any members of the public that wish to address the commission at this time? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close public comment, and we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, and that's the minutes. Are there any questions or comments from the commission on the February 3rd minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 6.1, and that is the Brown Act and a presentation on the Brown Act, and I'd like to turn that over to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. We thought it was a ripe time to do a refresher on the administrative standards and the Brown Act, just because we have 3 new board commissioners, and it would be helpful for us all to remember some of the reminders and the responsibilities that we all have as it relates to the Brown Act. So I'll try to keep this presentation to the point and just to highlight the most important things for you all to keep in mind as we continue out throughout the year. So this is a snippet from the City of Roseville Administrative Standards. You all should have received this packet as once you got appointed. This is also available for the public on our website. And this basically is our, for lack of a better word, our Bible, if you will, to help all of our boards, commission, and our city council adhere to the meeting procedures and the requirements as laid out in the Ralph M. Brown Act, which I'll expand a little bit later on. But the reason I wanted to highlight this is, well, one, just so that we know how many members are a part of the Parks and Recreation Commission. So we have 8 members total, 7 members, and a voting youth commissioner. And the responsibilities of the commission are as follows: to review and make recommendations on park projects, operations, recreation programs, events, and related issues. And that's important that I point that out, which I'll address later on in the presentation. But just so you all know what exactly are the parameters as far as your responsibilities on this commission. So the meeting procedures, all of our boards and commission and city council adhere to the administrative standards, which in other words is our meeting procedures. It outlines how we run our meetings. It outlines our process for appointing new board members and commissioners. And it incorporates a lot of the other guiding documents, such as the Brown Act, the Roberts Rule of Order, of course, our municipal code, and other statutory language. So the Brown Act, the Ralph M. Brown Act, was enacted in 1953, essentially to guarantee the public's access to open meetings and to ensure public participation in those meetings. So it basically established rules for local agencies to adhere to that ensured one, proper notice of meetings, and two, an opportunity and the ability to participate if the public so chose. So that essentially is the foundation, the fundamental values of the Brown Act. Essentially, the takeaway is that the public has a right to attend and participate in public meetings. And as you'll hear later on and throughout the presentation, much of what is built upon in the Brown Act goes back to that very value. So who does the Brown Act apply to? It applies to legislative bodies of a local agency. So for a county, that would be the County Board of Supervisors. And as for a city, it would be our city council. In addition to the city council, it also applies to the boards and commissions and other committees that are created by formal action. So of course, all of our boards and commissions, including the Parks and Recreation Commission. So, one of the fundamental features of the Brown Act is its definition of what is considered a meeting. So a meeting, for purposes of the Brown Act, is when a majority of the members of a board or commission get together at the same place, at the same time. And here's the important language: to hear, discuss, deliberate, or take action on any issue within its subject matter jurisdiction. So that means, so right now, the Parks and Recreation Commission is an 8-member body. So a majority of that would be 5 individuals. So anytime 5 of you get together at the same place and time to either hear or take action, that is considered a meeting. And it would be in violation of the Brown Act if it isn't a properly noticed meeting. So let's say you all go out for coffee and you happen to talk about or discuss, you're not taking any action, but you happen to discuss, the park naming for Apollo Park or Weber Park, and, that is within the subject matter of the commission. And unless that was a properly noticed meeting, which we'll get into a little bit further on, that would be a violation of the Brown Act. So in other words, I am always here, and you might be wondering why there's an attorney at every meeting, just to ensure that we are in compliance with the Brown Act, of course, in addition to answering any legal questions that may come up. So another important distinction is that it can be, like I mentioned, it can also be formal gatherings like today, or in an informal gathering like at a coffee shop, or it can be electronic communications such as email. And we'll get into that a little bit later on about why it's our practice that if we were to ever send out communications to you all as a group, that we would blind copy all of you just to make sure that we risk the chance of perhaps someone replying all, and that, as we'll discuss later on, is considered a meeting for purposes of the Brown Act. Lastly, the takeaway here is what's considered a quorum. So a quorum is required to even have a meeting, and a quorum, of course, is more than 1/2 of the voting members. So since our youth commissioner is also a voting member, again, more than 1/2 would be 5 commissioners. So a meeting is only possible with a quorum of the commission. So earlier I talked about having a properly noticed meeting. So what does that necessarily mean? So before we can hold a public meeting, it requires that we post notice of it at least 72 hours in advance in a publicly accessible place. That you can find that on our website, on different signage throughout the city. In certain circumstances, we also can have a special meeting or an emergency meeting, and those notice requirements are as outlined in the PowerPoint as well. So the next thing, which is really important, of course, going back to the fundamental values of the Brown Act, is the ability to participate, right? And so that is where the agenda comes into play. And the agenda allows for an opportunity for the public to comment on decisions or items that come before the commission, come before city council. And essentially, it must contain a brief general description about what's going to be discussed. Otherwise, it doesn't allow the public to meaningfully be aware of what's being discussed, what actions might take place. For example, when we discussed when you all had the opportunity to discuss the soccer complex or discuss the sponsorship opportunities at the soccer complex. If an agenda merely said, soccer complex, that doesn't really meaningfully provide any context for a member of the public to say, actually, I want to go and talk about that, or I want to go and maybe express my opinions about what should go into the soccer complex, the naming rights behind the soccer complex. So it just providing a brief description allows the public to meaningfully decide for themselves whether or not they want to come and participate and provide public comment. And of course, obviously, we don't allow any action or discussion on any item that is not posted on the agenda. And that's more so for the general public comment period that Mr. Chair had just called earlier. And so for anything that isn't on the agenda, the commission can hear it, but we cannot take any action or discuss it further until it's officially posted on the following agenda. So, earlier, I discussed what a meeting was, and it's a majority of the commission getting together to hear, to deliberate, to take action. There are other examples of what is considered a meeting, and these are called serial meetings, essentially, seriatim meetings. It may not necessarily dawn upon most people that this could potentially be a violation of the Brown Act. And the two examples I'll discuss very briefly are the chain of communications and the hub of a wheel. Essentially, this is, we talk about a meeting is when it's at the same place and time, but depending on the circumstances, other situations outside of that general rule can also constitute a meeting. The chain of communication is basically when, exactly as it kind of says, when one commissioner might go to, another commissioner to discuss their viewpoint on an upcoming agenda item. Let's say the naming of a dog park, and then that second commissioner then communicates with a third commissioner, and that third commissioner didn't know that there were two other commissioners who had already kind of discussed what their general opinions were. So, of course, this is based on a majority. So the majority of you would be 5 individuals, 5 commissioners discussing this, not necessarily knowing that others had already entered into the conversation. And so if that were to happen, that would be a violation of the Brown Act. And then the other example is the hub of a wheel, where one commissioner acts, or staff member acts as a hub and pretty much relays information from different commissioners to one another. And that essentially, if there was a majority of you all participating in that communication, whether you know about it or not, would also be a violation of the Brown Act. So you might be wondering, well, what can we do? Because you keep telling us what we can't do. But there are certain permitted communications, of course, that you can engage in. Of course, you can communicate outside of this meeting to constituents, to members, to residents, and inform them of what's going on with the commission, what's going on within the city. Of course, you can answer questions, so long as it doesn't communicate the viewpoints of another commissioner. And so long as you're not doing so with a majority of other commissioners, because again, that would constitute a meeting. Earlier I mentioned something about emails and you all being blind copied on emails so that we prevent the inadvertent reply all. This would be emails would be that in that situation, in that circumstance, that would be considered a Brown Act violation if you all were to reply all, even if it was harmless in terms of received, got your email, thank you. We don't want to risk that that situation, and so that's why most of the time when staff are communicating with you all, it would you all are blind copied for the most part. So. Going back to that same point about, well, what can we do? The following are examples of what are not considered a meeting, meaning you all can freely attend these events as a majority, as an entire commission, and it not be a violation of the Brown Act. So that includes conferences that are open to the public, community gatherings organized by someone other than the City of Roseville, perhaps another public meeting of another local agency, a ceremonial or social event like a park dedication that you all routinely get invited to, or just attending another meeting as an observer, an attendee, and not necessarily on the board or commission. So these are examples of what, of course, you all may attend and participate in, and it not be considered a violation of the Brown Act. One of the last things I'll mention in this presentation is an exception to the rule that I just said, which was a meeting is a congregation of the majority of you all. The exception here is social media. And so Assembly Bill 992 was passed in 2020 to essentially curb some of the back and forth on social media. So the general rule, of course, is you can't have a majority of you all in the same place, same time, deliberating, listening to, taking action. But the exception here is social media. And so, of course, for example, city council members, they have their own public-facing Facebook pages in which they can routinely share information to residents about upcoming events and projects, and that's not an issue. So the issue isn't that you can't have social media in your official capacity as a commissioner, but the issue is to not engage by liking, tweeting, responding to a post of a fellow commissioner. So let's say Nick Alexander, he posts, a post about the upcoming soccer complex. Regina can't like that post. She can't, seemingly harmless action, which is liking a post or loving it is, I guess social media offers different reactions nowadays, commenting on it, resharing, and the idea is to prevent the appearance of, commissioners sharing their viewpoints in a public setting such as social media. And so the general rule is that the city attorney's office likes to kind of point out is let's keep our thumbs to ourselves. So no liking, tweeting, disliking, responding, whatever the case may be, whether it's positive, neutral, or negative. Everyone is free to share information individually, but not to interact with a fellow commissioner, even if it's less than a quorum. So that is the general exception to the bright line rule of what's considered a meeting. So you might be wondering, what's the big deal? It's, something, it's harmless. Well, there are penalties for violating the Brown Act. And of course, it depends on the circumstances, but there are criminal penalties, there's civil actions, and there are an opportunity to potentially invalidate a past action. Let's say we, this commission recommended approving the naming rights for the soccer complex, and for whatever reason there was a Brown Act violation. Let's say there wasn't a quorum and only 4 of you were here, and you recommended approving it to the city council. City council ends up approving the naming rights for this soccer complex, and someone decides to sue based on a violation of the Brown Act, which they do. It doesn't happen in Roseville because we comply with the Brown Act, but it does happen. And depending on the circumstances, it may require us to invalidate that. And that's not fatal. Obviously, we can always bring it back to the commission, but depending on the project, depending on the circumstances, it could be fatal for the timing purposes. And in very egregious circumstances, there can be criminal penalties of a misdemeanor, although that has not happened in Roseville and will not happen in Roseville. So I'll summarize by highlighting some of the most important aspects, just for you all to remember. Of course, the majority of the members can't discuss Parks and Recreation Commission business amongst themselves. No serial meetings. Just be cautious with social media to the extent any of you have social media and you're representing yourself as a commissioner of the Parks and Recreation Commission. This doesn't apply to your private personal accounts. Obviously, we want to avoid forwarding emails and replying all, but I feel like our staff, have that handled in terms of blind copying the commissioners. And to the extent there are any questions, always feel free to seek advice from our office. I'm, of course, here at every meeting, so I'm always available for any questions that you all may have as well. I know most of you know this information, so thank you for sitting through it, but I hope, like, you all have, learned something new that perhaps you didn't know or didn't remember from before. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Does the commission have any questions of staff? I have just one comment, I think.
Yeah.
When you're talking about the types of meetings, Zoom meetings, Microsoft Teams meetings, I imagine, apply?
Yes, absolutely. During the time when we were still meeting virtually, the Brown Act still applies, meetings rules still apply, a quorum is still required for a Zoom meeting, assuming we have meetings on Zoom, right? We don't have that now, but if we were ever to go that direction again, the same meeting procedures apply.
I'm just saying for us, don't go having a meeting on Zoom.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Hearing no comments from the commission, I'd like to move on to the next item agenda, and that's...
Mr. Chair, I think you need to open this for public comment, just in case anyone happens to have public comment.
Because I just saw it as an informational item. But is there any members of the public that like to comment on this item? Hearing none, and again, this is an informational item, and no actions required by the commission. So the next item on the agenda is item 6.2, the Park Development Overview. Tara G.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to provide a park development overview. Park development is one of 5 divisions that make up the Parks, Recreation, and Libraries, or PRL, department. I am Tara G., your Planning and Development Manager. So the city has a general plan standard which outlines the number of park acres per population. So this chart shows that as measured by 1,000 people, 3 acres of neighborhood or school parks, 3 acres of citywide parks, and 3 acres of open space make up a 9 acre per 1,000 standard throughout the city of Roseville. It also identifies the sizes of parks as well as the population that is served. In addition to that, it's the service area, so neighborhood parks are a quarter of a mile to a mile from a resident, which factors into our 10-minute walk initiative by the National Park and Recreation Association. For citywide and open space, of course, that serves the entire city of Roseville. This is a short video that talks about funding and how parks are funded.
This is Roseville in 90. As Roseville grows, we are committed to building new parks to maintain a high quality of life for our residents. But with more demand than resources, the city has to plan and build parks very strategically, taking into account location, size, and amenities. It's a giant parks puzzle. Park locations are determined in our specific plan process. This process lays out roads, homes, schools, stores, and parks in a new area at one time to ensure they all work together. Funding for parks is tied directly to new home sales in Roseville. All new home sales include small fees to build or expand larger citywide parks like our Mahaney and Maidu parks, and small fees to pay for new park construction in the area of the new home. In many areas, there are voter-approved annual fees for park maintenance. So when the housing market is slow, it takes longer to save enough money for a new park. Before we can begin a new park or in addition to an existing park, there needs to be enough money for construction and for continued maintenance. Otherwise, it's like buying an expensive new car but having no money for gas. When enough funding is available, the city holds neighborhood meetings to get input on the park's features and layout. From this beginning, it can take 18 months to 2 years to plan, build, and open a beautiful new park.
So concludes my presentation, but it doesn't. So more to come. So to expand upon this video, that we first start with long-range planning. And we have specific plans outlined throughout the entire city that's shown on the left of the screen. And then the more detailed, I know some of you are familiar with this, and hopefully it's a refresher for the rest or new to the others, that on the right side is a specific plan. And as the video described, it does identify all the key components and parcels that make up a plan area. In this case, this is Amarusa Ranch, and you'll see the red, the single-family homes that are in yellow, purple, the school park sites, or the school sites, or quasi-public sites, and so on. Most particular for us is the dark green and the light green, which is, the dark green is parks, and the light green is open space. So again, park fees are collected in a number of different ways. Yes, they are collected through building permit process, and we collect several different fees through that process. Citywide park development fee and the neighborhood park development fee are standard fees that depend on home sales to collect. We also have in lieu of land fee, so in an area, specifically, as an example, Amarusa Ranch did not dedicate any land for citywide parks, so they are paying an in lieu of land fee, so that they are able to then meet the general plan standards. The other ones, I won't go into too much, but there are different fees for different reasons, and finally, the last one, Community Facilities District for Services. You're going to hear a little bit more about that later tonight, so I won't go too much into it. The park planning process has 8 steps. Public workshops, which lead into master plan approval, environmental, CEQA is the California Environmental Quality Act. Design development starts the construction documents. Citywide planning of or citywide review of those plans lead into permitting. Then we bid, award, construct, and establish. Establishment's probably the hardest part because the park looks done and finished, but the fences are still up. But we are establishing turf to ensure that it can take heavy foot traffic. We're doing safety certifications and sign-offs. And of course, the fun part is step 8, the park dedication process. To go back into up to the top, public workshops, there's a formula that we've created, or a process where we have an initial meeting that is a virtual meeting. Thanks to COVID, we saw a lot more participation, so we kept that aspect of it. The second follow-up is an in-person meeting, and the third component of that public workshop process is a 2-week write-in period. And many times people ask, I've given you input on design, so why can't I see what I've given you? And as you can see on the screen, there's lots of design considerations. We have need assessments and gaps that we look at, construction and maintenance costs, neighborhood impacts, recreation spending, trends, general plan standards that you had just been shown, as well as the stay and play value. So as an example, a neighborhood park has a stay and play value of 1 hour to an hour and a half. You go, you walk to the park, you bike to the park, you stay, and you go home. A citywide park on the opposite end, you could spend 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. You can spend the whole day there, and you're typically driving to a park because it's more regional. And in between those two is the school park sites, which are a little bit bigger, and those designs have a stay and play value of about 2 to 3 hours. That's where you play a baseball game, and that's where you'll need restrooms versus a small park where we typically don't put a restroom in the neighborhood park. This slide shows all the input modes that happen when you're designing a park. So as you can see, it's a full screen of different components from internal city departments, as well as state, federal regulations, environmental groups, development communities, school groups, as well as the resident itself. And the residents on that little small circle on the bottom right, certainly they're bigger than all the others combined. So there's a lot of inputs that go into design. Conversely, in construction, it's very similar. Things happen during construction decisions have to be made. The initial input are a similar group of stakeholders, if you will, from, again, environmental to the landscape contractor to engineers, designers, and general contractors. So they're all part of that. The big part in both slides is the budget. Budget these days are not going as far as they used to. After COVID, the cost of construction has really increased, and we have not seen that go down. But construction decisions also include value engineering. So if you see, some of you are familiar with that term, but it's basically looking at how to achieve the same thing using either different materials or taking it out of the project just because it doesn't fit the budget. Of course, bid results, unforeseen site conditions. So unfortunately, on a piece of paper, you can't see everything that's underground. So sometimes you will run into something that you don't anticipate, which then costs more money. Of course, it's another impact to the budget. We've seen supply issues, as well as making sure that we adhere to construction standards. And sometimes those are dependent on regulations and building codes. So all of those are aspects that are included in the construction process. So now the fun part. Here are the projects that are currently under design. In Sierra Vista, we have 3 parks that are under design. So that public workshop process that I described earlier, all of them, including Campus Oaks CO61, has gone through the initial first 2 steps of the public outreach process. All of last year, toward the end of last year, we've gone through a virtual meeting. We've also had a in-person public workshop, and right now FD50 and JM52 are in the write-in period. Fairly soon, toward the end of this month, JM51 and CO61 will be entering into the write-in period. And that will hopefully conclude, if we see consensus, about moving forward to the Parks Commission to look at those master plans and review those. Concurrently, we're also looking at Sogstad Park renovations, major renovations to Sogstad Park. Some of you are aware that we are looking at the Finament Homestead, a vision plan to see what we do with that site. It's very exciting to be able to identify what that site could be, and a update of the Pistachio Regional Park. This commission, some of you weren't on it at the time, did approve the revision to the Pistachio Regional Park, and that was to add a skate track as well as a BMX track to where the soccer fields once were. Now that we've moved the soccer fields to the soccer complex, we had an opportunity to add some very well-needed amenities. Under construction right now, we've got several that are about to start construction, Campus Oaks Phase 2 will add a ninja course, and that work is happening right now. That's consistent with the master plan. Soon to come is a skate track in that area. We have just completed a public survey process, so we had over 200 survey respondents, so it was a good showing, and now the consultant is working through that. About to be going out to bid is Silver Spruce Park, or KT52, which is in the Sierra Vista area. Rocky Rock Home Park, FD51, also in the Sierra Vista area. And Lower Bank Park, which is the first park in Creekview. Currently under construction right now, John Bayou Park, which is the fifth park that is in the Sierra Vista area. It will be the first one that will be fully built, and it's located next to Rex Fortune Elementary School. As you all know, Placer Valley Soccer Complex is under construction. It's a 2-year process. We are about 18 months into it, maybe a little less than that, but we look forward to having that completed toward the end of this year. And of course, Johnson Pool renovations. That renovation is a big lift. We're looking at the buildings. We're looking at redoing the pool area with a zero-depth entry. So it's very exciting to have a refresh on this 100-year-old facility. And that could be done this summer. Recently completed projects, Crimson Ridge Park improvements. Crimson Ridge Park was built by the developer in the Campus Oaks area. The city came in and made some additional improvements, so those additional improvements are finished. So the people in the Campus Oaks area right now are enjoying that informal passive park. Denial Family Park is the one that just opened. We had the fences taken down about 2 weeks ago, and that is the one off of Finament with the beautiful preserve area. Half the park is a preserve, but the more exciting thing that happened there is the addition of a disc golf course, as well as our largest dog park area there. There will be a second phase that comes along later, and that will add some trails that connect to Freitas Park and then north under Blue Oaks. Riego Creek Park is open as well. This one's next to Riego Elementary School in the Finament Farm area. We are doing a second phase to this, and we're adding more turf to the outfield areas outside the fences. And we're hoping to award that bid sometime in March or April. So that's exciting to be able to finish that. And of course, Weber Park. On Wednesday, we go to City Council to ask the approval of the notice of completion of this park. This park is 14 years in the making, and we're very excited to be able to open that up. Jill will talk a little bit later about the dedications to come, but these parks, usually what happens is that we will take the fences down, have a soft opening while we plan a more formal dedication. So with that, this is an information item only. No action is being requested at this time. This concludes my presentation, and I'll turn it back over to you with any questions.
Thank you, Tara. I'd like to bring it back to the commission. Do the commissioners have any questions of staff?
Comment.
Yeah.
I love the new walkway at Caseburg Park.
We walked it.
At lunch one day.
Yeah, that's
Beautiful.
nice to have that loop completed.
It looks really nice.
Thank you.
And Tara, thank you for that presentation. I'll just say, I think you also do a fantastic job on the park development portion of the website. Long before I was on this commission, I felt like I had a good grasp of what was happening because of the information that you put on there, very transparent. I think that video that you showed was on there. So just want to say thank you for being so transparent and allowing resources for the public to follow all this exciting construction.
Great, thank you.
I sound extremely biased, but Denial Family Park is absolutely incredible. That's my employer, for those of you out there. But I had a chance to visit it a couple weeks ago, and it was a really nice Saturday, and there was a lot of people there, and it was incredible. So fantastic job on that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? And Denial Family Park is my client, too, so. Okay, I'd like to open this up to the public. Anybody in the public would like to comment on this item? Okay, hearing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. And obviously, everybody can see Tara's got this figured out. And that was an excellent presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
All right, and again, this is an informational item only, and we're going to proceed to the next item on the agenda, which is 6.3, an overview of districts and contract compliance.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Eric Dexter. I'm one of the Parks and Open Space Superintendents, and this is...
I'm Jana Rapetti, Parks and Open Space Supervisor.
And we're here tonight to share a little bit about the districts throughout the city. What do we do in these district areas? These are things we'll be talking about tonight. Managing district areas for maintenance of various assets, managing large district budgets, contract compliance for streetscapes and parks throughout the city, customer service, projects and non-routine work. We have 27 different districts throughout the city of Roseville. They range in size of 50 acres in like the Fitment district of streetscape to a quarter acre on Vernon Street, just outside these doors. There's two types of districts. There's lighting and landscape districts, or LLDs, which were first developed in the city in the 80s. And more recently, we have community facility districts, or CFDs, which are in the newer areas. On this next map, you'll see these are all the various districts throughout the city laid out in a geographical location. The areas in the white boxes are the newer areas of Sierra Vista, Creekview, and Amoruso Ranch. Those are continuing to grow. They've just, they're partly built out, and they're continuing to be built out in phases as we speak. The district budgets. So if you look at overall all the districts that we manage, they combine to make an 11.7 million operational budget, and 3.2 million of that is dedicated to routine park and landscape contract maintenance. Out of those areas, 38 of them there's 38 different budgets that we manage in all the districts. And we have 3 contract compliance technicians that manage those areas. That's the names up there, Doug, Jared, and John, and they manage those areas. All these areas are not apples to apples. You can see that they have maybe various acres that they manage, but they're all, some are big, some are small budget areas, some have different zones within them, and each have stipulations for how we maintain them and how we spend the funds for those areas. If you look at overall, we have 363 acres of streetscapes throughout the city. And I'm a big football fan, and I would equate it to a football field. So a football field is 1.57 acres. So if you look at the streetscapes, it's 231 football fields, if you can imagine that. And it's not just turf. It's trees. It's bark. It's shrubs. It's grass. It's all kinds of stuff. So it's a lot of area. And then we have these district documents. These are what are formed when districts are developed working with developers, right? The LDs and CFDs are development agreements with the city that fund specific areas in the city and include parks, streetscapes, trails, natural areas, sound walls, fences, stormwater, leaf collection, and street sweeping. LDs were the city's original formation documents, and over time, CFDs have become the preferred method. LDs have general obligations and are more broad, where CFDs include hearing reports, documented information that's updated annually, that are more detailed, including authorized services that are very specific. Each district has its own set of authorized services that allows us to do the work in those districts. Depending on what is agreed to, they can vary. One example is about 3 of our district areas include maintenance of wood fencing on main corridors. Most of them don't, though. I want to give you a comparison of a couple districts. One is West Park, which is a CFD, and then we have the Northwest LLD. The West Park CFD was formed in 2004. It includes 9 parks and 41 acres of landscaping. It includes costs to take care of natural resources, trails, leaf pickup, street sweeping, and stormwater maintenance. The district allows for an annual special tax increase of no more than 4%. So each year it is assessed, and based on the needs of the district, it can go up to 4% annually. The Northwest District, on the other hand, is an LLD that was formed in 1989. It's allowed to maintain street landscaping, sound walls, bike trails, the maintenance of natural areas in the specific plan. But to give you a little more insight on that is it started with an assessment of all the parcel owners at $100 a month. $100 a year. I apologize. $100 a year. And for the past 36 years, it stayed at $100 per year. So you can see that's come with challenges, right? Costs have continued to increase. This has caused reduced service levels, for example. In most districts, we prune a minimum of 3 times per year in our landscapes. In this area, we can only do 2. We can't do more than that. The city has gone out to vote in this specific district three different times for the tax owners in that area, and they've turned it down 3 different times. The district will continue to have challenges unless at some point funding is increased. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Jana.
Thank you. I'm going to talk a little about our maintenance areas. So we maintain parks, both general fund parks and district funded parks, streetscapes, and facilities. I'll talk a little about funding of parks first. The city has 91 parks. Based on how you are counting those parks, I think I did include our newest parks, like Denio Family Park is on here, for example. Of our 91 parks, 57 of those are funded through the general fund. Those total approximately 770 acres, and so not including the regional parks, Maidu and Mahaney, that's approximately 440 acres of general fund parks. Our district-funded parks, there are 34 of them, and they total approximately 210 acres. So next slide is maintenance of those parks. There are 24 parks that are maintained in-house, in other words, by City of Roseville park staff. And the acres almost flip-flop, actually. So 210 acres, not including the regional parks, are maintained in-house. 6 of those that are maintained in-house are funded through the general fund, through district funds. 67 of our parks are contracted. So in other words, those parks fall under our Parks and Streetscapes team to oversee the contracts, the landscape maintenance contracts of those parks. So you can see there, there's a number of district-funded parks, but also 39 general fund parks that are maintained under our contracts. Eric mentioned there are 663 acres of streetscapes that we oversee. That is an example of one of our map pages out of our map book. I should have put a picture of the map book, but this is the map book. And we operate out of this map book. So each page in here is a little like that one. And we use this to communicate with our contractors. So we may say, hey, there's an irrigation leak, and refer them to a map page. They will similarly bill us by map page. It helps us ensure that the work is done to our specifications and that it's being done in the right areas. So each one of our technicians, our contract compliance technicians, carries one of these map books, as do our contractors. Our team also oversees the maintenance of landscapes in our facilities. So again, there's some of those similar map pages. There are 24 facilities under our landscape maintenance contract. All 9 fire stations fall under that contract, school districts, wastewater treatment plants, the police department, and more.
So when it comes to contract compliance, we roughly manage $3.2 million of streetscape contracts and $800,000 of parks maintenance contracts. Working with large landscape maintenance contracts for monthly routine maintenance, which include mowing, edging, pruning, and detailing. Needing to have familiarity with the contract standards in horticulture, we work with the contractors to make sure they understand our standards for the city contract. Here are some photos of contract compliance issues. On the far right, you have a broken irrigation system that we deal with. In the middle, you have a stressed redwood tree that needs to be addressed. And then on the left, you have a leak and trash in the planter bed. Just a few of the contract compliance issues we deal with. On the next slide These are the, so give me a little history. We used to have, up till this year, we had one contractor that we worked with that did the entire contract for the city. We did our RFP this last year, and we decided to go a different direction and to break up the city with 3 contractors. We currently have one contractor, Elite Maintenance, that does only our park areas and facilities. Cagwin and Dorwood, they focus on some of the streetscapes and some of the facilities. And New Image just as exclusive streetscapes. So we broke it up to give some more competition, to allow more work to get done and to have options for future work. Next kind of ties into what Tara was talking about just a little bit ago, punch list walks. So one of the things we also do is our team works with Tara's team as they develop new streetscapes throughout the city. They follow the construction, and then it gets to what we call our punch list walks. And our teams participate with a park development team, and we walk these areas to look for issues so that when it does get turned over to us, we can try and address those before it becomes ownership of our team and maintained with the contractors.
As you know, customer service, service to our residents is very important to the city of Roseville as well as to our team. As such, our team receives the highest amount of My Roseville requests citywide, not just within parks. So the blue area in the kind of the upper right of that icon there is landscaping and streetscapes. So that would be our team. The other categories may be assigned to us as well. For example, a tree concern could fall within a streetscape. Park maintenance, irrigation concerns, graffiti, a portion of all of those other large sections also come to our streetscapes team. Also, just to give you an idea, we have roughly 180, My Roseville requests at any given time that we're daily working through. So it's a large volume. Our team also responds to USAs and leak alerts. So USAs are underground service alerts. If there's going to be digging or construction that's going to be anywhere near any of our assets, underground assets, then we would receive notification of that, and we would respond and mark our assets. So that could be like a water main line, for example. Currently, this time of year, we receive roughly 10 of those a week during our kind of slow off season. And then, of course, in the spring and summer months, as construction increases, of course, so do the USA requests. We do this, of course, to protect our assets. So the picture on the right there is really hard to see, but I'll tell you what that is. But a contractor either ignored or did not see our markings and struck a main line, which then, of course, needed to be repaired. The same could happen if, and this does occur, but if we did not receive notification like we should, then maybe we haven't marked our asset and then it's impacted. Other utilities mark as well, like Roseville Electric, PG&E, et cetera. So this would go out to all utilities, essentially. We have to respond within 48 hours. We use a locator device to trace our wire, and we mark where that asset is underground. Leak alerts. So we work closely with water efficiency as well. They are always tracking any leaks throughout the city. We just had a meeting with them this morning. So they send us regular lists if there are leaks, and we meet with them regularly so that we can address those leaks and repair them. Okay, so non-routine work. Our team oversees approximately $4.5 million in projects and non-routine work. We use our landscape contractors who are doing our regular monthly maintenance. We use them for non-routine work as well. Vandalism, natural disaster, general wear and tear, all of those equal repairs and projects and other non-routine work. So in addition to working with landscape contractors, we also work with masonry contractors, electricians, lighting contractors, even upholstery contractors, painting, fabrication, fencing, just to name a few. And here's a little example. If a vehicle has an accident in one of our streetscapes, maybe they cause damage to irrigation, landscaping, and a sound wall, we may have interactions with multiple contractors. There may be multiple site visits. We may work with our landscape contractor to repair irrigation, replace some plants or shrubs. We may also work with a masonry contractor if there's been damage to a sound wall. And we may work with our urban forestry department as well if there was damage to a tree. So we work with other city departments, including water, Roseville Electric, street maintenance, code enforcement. The first photo here shows vandalism to one of our parks. This type of incident results in a non-routine project with our contractor for repairs. The photo in the middle there was an interesting one. That was a broken main line, an older one that was essentially built in a privately owned retaining wall. So that is on private property, but it is our main line. And so that project resulted in coordination with the homeowner, with our legal department, thank you, Maitien, and the contractor and other agencies. So that was kind of a joint effort, and that happens a lot. The photo on the right is our archway coming into Vernon Street. These pillars were damaged during the winter storms several years ago, and repairs took a very long time. The work was just finally completed recently. So there were a number of complicating factors, including complications with the contractor, multiple funding sources. This spanned multiple fiscal years, which created some interesting challenges. And also, you can see that it's really important that we inspect the work done by our contractor. It looks really good now, by the way. This is an example of a compliance project. So another responsibility of our team is to keep the city in compliance with regulations such as water efficiency and non-functional turf conversions. So there is a state requirement that has to do with non-functional turf. Our team has been selecting priority areas and for non-functional turf conversions. So in addition to staying compliant, there's also a cost savings. So as you know, turf requires irrigation repairs, regular mowing, edging, etc. So there is a savings associated with utilities and maintenance with that turf. This particular example, it was from Stone Ridge District. This area was actually intended for fire truck access, but you can see it's turf, and that might pose a number of problems for a fire truck trying to access a neighborhood. So one of our technicians took on this project, ensured that we installed road grade concrete for fire access. It is now traffic rated to specifications with a 9-inch footing and a 6-inch pad, as well as rebar reinforcement. He was also able to spruce up the landscaping at that same time, and we have pleased neighbors, which is an added bonus.
Assets. We have a large number of assets, and many of the assets at first glance seem like they might be a park asset. For example, certain sound walls are district-owned and maintained. Fencing, backflows, irrigation controllers, lighting, monument signs are examples, including lighting such as street lighting, Christmas lights, entryways. These unique assets we are responsible for maintaining them. As a result, we work with a wide range of contractors like we shared earlier. The picture in the middle is the Cosmos at Sculpture Park. It's a park asset as well. We have to paint it every 7 years. This year we did an RFQ for repainting We had some concerns about the paint that had been done previously. And this year, we had a third-party inspector came in who was an expert at painting projects like this and was able to give us advice and make sure it was done properly. The picture on the right is an example of where we received concerns about lighting in a district where we had to work with a contractor to do repairs for the uplighting. Here's an example of another rehab project that we did recently. The photos are Summer Hill Monument Rehab Project in North Central District. This neighborhood wanted this to be done and was very patient. This project took years, and we had to plan for the funding. The funding was designed specifically for maintaining this district, and we had to build up the funds to do this project. The work was conducted all at once rather in stages. Our technician coordinated with a paint contractor, a landscaper, a sign contractor, and an electrician to rehab this. We got the paint done with and added with the paint code and aerosol cans and made the final touches to the sign recently. We also replaced halogen lights with LED for energy efficiency, and the old sign was aluminum and not UV protected, while the new one is UV protected and should last much longer. And this final slide, we just wanted to provide that we want to provide exceptional experiences. And this was a note that we got from a resident based on that Summer Hill project that we just showed. And I'd like to read it to you just as an example from one of our residents. I'd like to express my gratitude to John and Jared for their effort in repairing our monument site in Summer Hill community. They were so professional, informative, and excited to offer updates during the steps it took to complete this project. A group of us are thrilled with the outcome and are very much looking forward to seeing the new blooms pop up this spring, summer. Thanks again for adding this to the annual budget. We are excited about the fresh aesthetics to the community. So I just want to share that as a community member shared that with us. So with that, is there any questions?
Back to the commission. Do the commissioners have any questions of staff?
I have one. Jana, you had the slide about how some parks are maintained in-house and others are contract. How do you decide which direction you're going to go with a park?
Well, until recently, I believe they all fell under our contracts except for the regional parks.
Yep.
So that was a recent decision. I'm relatively new in my position still, so I should probably let Eric speak more to that decision.
We manage the contracts. We also have a park operations team, and they manage the park system, right? And so over the years, we've done it different ways. More recently, we've looked to see how we can bring back more parks in-house. We recently took 22 parks back in-house this January, and so we're trying to always look to balance that. I know we look at new parks where the 22 that we took back in-house were parks that had sports fields and ball fields and kind of our high-use parks with the bathrooms that Tara talked about and kind of those high-use parks. So we took those back in-house first. We'd love to obviously do all our parks in-house, but it's at this point we're taking steps to build those ones back internally. But in the future, we're going to continue to look at that as we build additional parks. We'll look at have that balance of which one should be internal, which one should we have a contractor do it, and try to balance that as best we could.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? I just have one. I'm familiar with that LLD issue. Is there any chance that we can look into other sources of funding for those LLDs that are $100 a month that was approved in the 90s and obviously has not kept track with inflation?
Right.
You want to speak to that, Shauna?
Well, I'm not sure what additional funding sources you might be considering.
All I'm saying is that we would have to get creative.
We will have to get created. I mean,
And I don't
things
know,
like
I don't know of any other.
grants, projects, donations, those are certainly opportunities that we investigate. But yeah, that LLD was created, as Eric mentioned, most of the CLDs and LLDs now have an escalator because our costs go up every year, right? And the Northwest LLD was formed in 1989 with no escalator, which is why our costs have continued to increase, but our funding hasn't. So yes, that's a really good question, Nick, and we always look for opportunities to get funding.
Yeah, like I say, we'd have to get creative. That's all.
I was
I'm
just
saying.
hoping that you might have had an idea that we hadn't thought of. That's why I pushed it right back to you.
If it was in Olympus Point, I might.
We have over the years tried to get creative in terms of, we have done some volunteer projects. It is challenging because they're streetscapes, right? But we have done some improvements working with the community to improve some of those areas and even utilize different landscape mulch that's more affordable. And we've tried to get creative as best we can with the funding we have. So.
Is there an Arcona out there in that area?
I'm not sure.
Maybe you'll approach the Arcona and, present the problem to them.
Well, to add to that, this is one of our biggest districts. It's over 38 acres of landscape, right? So it's a massive area throughout the central city, part of the city, so.
Understood.
Yeah.
Like I say, it would take some creativity. Okay. Anybody in the public would like to address this issue? Hearing no public comment, this item is an informational item, and no action is needed. So the next item on the agenda is the spring and summer community events.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Kathleen Beatty, and I am the Recreation Coordinator in charge of planning most of the community events that we will talk about today. With me is Will Neville. He is the Recreation Supervisor that oversees our community events.
So to give a brief overview, as of 2024, we have offered over 50 annual City of Roseville events. To name a few of these, Wine Down Wednesday, Friday Flicks, the July 4th celebration, Family Fest, Turkey Trot, Downtown Holiday Celebration, Neighborhood Santa, and concerts are all just a few of the many. We continue to see great attendance at each event. In 2024, we saw over 64,000 attendees come through our events, so it is great to see that almost 8,000 more people came out and enjoyed the city-run events in our community when compared to 2023.
This spring and summer, our event calendar features impressive array of over 15 events. Today, I'd like to shine a spotlight on a few of these exciting events. On April 23rd, join us for Dinner on the Bridge, where participants will enjoy a magical evening on our scenic pedestrian bridge. The event includes a delightful 3-course meal with wine pairings, followed by a mission to our Wine Down Wednesday. May 5th, don't miss out on our second annual Spring Craft Fair at Mahaney Fitness Center. Explore a wide variety of unique handmade treasures and support local artisans in a creative shopping atmosphere. Starting June 3rd, we invite toddlers and their families to Tot Tuesday on Furnace Street Town Square, transforming it into a vibrant playground every Tuesday in June. Following last year's success with over 300 participants, we're extending this to a 6-week series due to its popularity. And then on July 26th, experience a colorful Chalk Your Walk event. Revel in the explosion of sidewalk chalk of art that brings our Vernon Street Town Square to life. This event features an art gallery with works from artists of all ages, live performances by local singers, art vendors, and fun activities for the kids. So we host over 50 annual events, and we're proud to report significant success in our programs. As Will pointed out, our events have seen strong attendance with significant boosts of 7,000 attendees in the past year alone. Due to the surge in popularity, we've had to expand our capacity for events like Dinner on the Bridge, where attendance has increased to 120 and still sold out nearly 2 months in advance. We also are committed to continually enhancing our events offerings by introducing captivating new experiences for our community. For instance, we have merged Family Fest with a community picnic to create an extended day of entertainment that stretches from Vernon Street Town Square to Royer Park. This year, we're excited to expand the event even further with the addition of the last summer concert. Additionally, we're excited to introduce new events like Sip and Savor, where participants can enjoy small bites from local restaurants, paired with complimentary drinks while exploring various shopping booths. This event will occur 3 times, each featuring a unique theme: brunch, appetizers, and of course, desserts. Also, don't miss our new floating egg extravaganza, the egg hunt in the pool with over 8,000 eggs. Attendees will enjoy crafts, win prizes, and a chance, of course, to meet the bunny. These additions have greatly enhanced our community event offerings.
So while we've seen a lot of success with our events, there will inevitably be challenges. One of the challenges that's facing us is vendors. More and more vendors have changed their business models as they adapt to the current economic climate. We have to adjust to this too, but so far it has not been a major obstacle. For example, their staffing levels have not been consistent, and if they don't have the staff to support their booth, then they may have to drop out from an event that they've scheduled with us. A solution that we are currently implementing is, as mentioned, working with the vendors on an individual basis to ensure that they're able to come to the event, and then sometimes this means that we have to look at getting city staff to man their booths. Additionally, another challenge we face is adult-specific events. While there's a clear demand for more events aimed at adults, we've seen challenges with registration and attendance. Thankfully, we seem to be doing a lot better than we were in the past with this. As Kathleen mentioned, our Dinner on the Bridge is sold out about 2 months out, which is awesome. But we're continuing to market early and often, and we're trying to engage with that population to try and find dates that work well for them. We've also, again, introduced a few new events to try and capture that population as well, such as the Sip and Savor series. And location is also a challenge that we've seen as well with, as we continue to see growth within the city, there's increasing demands for more events on the west side of town, in addition to our current offerings. So we compete for space and time with other groups and other events in the neighboring regions as well. So what we've been trying to do is add several events to that side of town, such as the Spring Craft Fair, in order to best serve the community as a whole. We're also looking at the region and being strategic when we introduce new event dates so as to pull in the maximum number of attendees.
All right. We are filled with excitement for the spring and summer events, and our anticipation for fall events is just as strong. This fall, we eagerly welcome back our beloved Friday Flicks Trunk or Treat. And then on September 20th, Vernon Street Town Square and Royer Park will be alive with the Family Fest Fall Festival and Concert. Expect stage performances and family-oriented game zones featuring activities like tug-of-war, potato sack races, three-legged races, a kids' pie eating contest, and a water balloon toss competition, all culminating in a spectacular last summer concert on the square. Additionally, the Floating Pumpkin Patch and our Fall Comedy Night are poised to return, promising unforgettable experiences for all attendees. But we'll be back in August to talk to you about those fall events.
So, as I mentioned earlier, I don't know if I mentioned earlier, we do have sponsorship opportunities available. So anyone looking to sponsor an event and get in front of our over 64,000 local annual attendees can visit our website, which is linked up there, roseville.ca.us/events, for more information on how to partner with us for some of these events.
All right. All the events and opportunities we have mentioned today can be found on our website on the screen. This concludes our presentation, and we are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Kathleen and Will. I'd like to bring it back to the commission. Do the commissioners have any questions? Kevin?
Fantastic job. Just out of curiosity, internally, is there any kind of surveys that go out just about the events? Just there's so many events a year, just whether it's ways to improve them or ways to change things up a little bit. Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, it's actually a great question. We are in the process of totally revamping our event evaluations and our event surveys. We are going to be passively having QR codes for folks to scan at our events to get the feedback. In addition, doing targeted emails after the events to gain participant feedback for those ticketed events where we have that information. So yes, that is something we are definitely doing.
Awesome.
Commissioners have any further questions? At this time, I'd like to open it up public comment. Are there any members in the public that would like to comment on this item? Hearing no comments, again, Kathleen and Will, thank you for your presentation. And again, this is a informational item for the commission, and no action is necessary. And having said that, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is adaptive programming.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Megan Eaton, and I'm a Recreation Coordinator with oversight of adaptive programming. To the left is our new team member, Nellie Quiroz Perez, a certified therapeutic recreation specialist who has filled our newest role as our therapeutic recreation program leader. We are here tonight to present on the adaptive programming team and introduce to you this team and showcase some of our program offerings coming this season. Adaptive programs are designed to accommodate individuals of varying cognitive, intellectual, and physical abilities. Under the supervision of a nationally certified recreation therapist, adaptive programs promote sensory exploration, physical activity, and social skills in a supportive and fun environment. In 2023, PRL sought to actively increase opportunities to enhance experiences by providing adaptive programming. In early 2023, we began to form a team with representatives from youth and adult programming, libraries, aquatics, fitness, and facilities. The outcome of this team was to create programs for this population that captured interests and met the expected experience needs. In later 2023, PRL hosted a focus group inviting members of the community, parents, caretakers, educators, and specialists to take part in providing feedback about what should be considered when creating this type of programming. The feedback received from this group became the foundation for the beginning of our programming journey. Following the focus group, PRL invested in the opportunity to hire a consultant to help evaluate and guide more intentional adaptive experiences. Lastly, and most importantly, PRL recently hired a certified therapeutic recreation program leader. I'll now turn it over to Nellie to talk about her journey and experience becoming a certified therapeutic recreation specialist.
Good evening, Commissioners. Before I jump into the current and future adaptive program opportunities, I wanted to share a little bit about myself. I am a graduate from Sacramento State. I earned a bachelor's degree in communications with a minor in journalism. And in addition, I also earned a master's degree in recreation administration. I completed my recreational therapy certification requirements in conjunction with my graduate coursework, and this distinct certification is rigorous and includes 18 units of recreational therapy content, supportive coursework in human development, abnormal psychology, and human anatomy, 1,500 hours of paid professional experience under the supervision of another recreational therapist, and finally, receiving a passing score on the certification exam administered by the National Council for Therapeutic Recreation Certification. And I was finally able to earn my certification back in October, so I'm excited to be here. Lastly, I have gained valuable work experience at the Well, which is Sac State's campus recreational facility. In my time here, I facilitated programs for a group of students with neurodiversities in an adult transition program, so the age group was between 18 to 22. I organized wheelchair sports clinics in collaboration with the City of Sacramento. I coordinated accommodation requests for our members. I provided inclusion trainings and disability awareness trainings for staff from other departments. And I also trained and supervised student staff and volunteers who helped execute our programs. In addition, I also developed leisure wellness plans for members who registered for one-on-one sessions with myself. So next we're going to talk about some of the spring and summer program offerings. We have Bunnies and Baskets, which is a returning program. This is a sensory-friendly Easter event. Families can enjoy crafts and meet the Easter Bunny in a calm environment. We also have a couple newer programs. Our first one is Play and Connect, which is a support group for parents to come and connect with one another with children who have are either on the spectrum, have some type of learning disability, intellectual disability. It's just a really fun way for them to connect while their children go off and play and participate in different sensory-friendly activities. And then we also have Adaptive My First Camp. So with My First Camp, children take part in activities centered around creativity and exploration without parent participation, and we created an adaptive session of that same camp. With this adaptive session, we will basically offer the same curriculum, just in a smaller class size, so we could provide that better one-on-one support to the child. And we'll be providing parents with a questionnaire so we can better prepare to meet that child's specific needs. And we might ask parents or caregivers to be present to some extent, but overall we want them to still experience that same opportunity to step into being an independent child. Lastly, for our fall programs, we are in the early stages of planning for fall, and we're excited to introduce new programs. Some ideas include social events, fitness and sports education events, and cooking classes. Additionally, we're bringing back Sensory Santa. Similar to Bunnies and Baskets, it's where participants can enjoy festive activities and meet Santa in a common sensory-friendly environment. So stay tuned for more details and information as we proceed. I'm going to turn it back over to Megan to talk about our sensory kits.
Did you know that PRL offers sensory kits? Do you know what a sensory kit is? It's a collection of items designed to help individuals, especially with those sensory processing challenges, self-regulate and feel more comfortable in various environments. These kits are commonly used for individuals with autism, ADHD, anxiety, or sensory sensitivities. Each kit includes fidget toys such as stress balls or spinners that can help with focus and calming, noise-canceling headphones that reduce overwhelming sounds, textured objects such as squishy toys, books, fabric swatches that offer tactile stimulation. Participants may request to borrow a kit during our recreation programs. A written request can be made in advance or in person at one of our facilities. Our sensory kits are located at the Mighty Community Centers, the Mahaney Fitness Center, and the Mike Shelato Indoor Pool. Along with the recreation offerings, these kits are also offered at our libraries. And they have different sensory kits with fidgets and books. You can also see these sensory kits available at some of our events, such as Sensory Sensitive Bunnies and Baskets, Sensory Santa, Adaptive Talk Tuesday, Chalk Your Walk, and Family Fest. The benefits of these sensory kits can help calm a person's nerves, relieve stress, and serve as a distraction in an overwhelming or overstimulating environment. The toys pulls the user away from the particular stressful thought or situation and provides a temporary form of relief. We do our best to communicate our offerings using a few different outlets. First, some of our programs printed in the PRL magazine, which is published three times per year. Due to this being a new team, we are in the process of continually creating and evaluating offerings. Therefore, some of our programs don't make it to print in the magazine. We do utilize social media and our webpage to communicate our offerings on a more regular basis. Our adaptive webpage, which is listed on the screen, is a great spot to see the latest information and updates. We also work with PCOE in offering certain programs and events such as our sensory sensitive Bunnies and Baskets and our Sensory Santa event.
This concludes our presentation for this evening. I've included my contact information on the last slide for the Roseville community to reach out to me directly with any questions or recommendations. Megan and I will be happy to answer any questions that you may have about adaptive programming. Thank you.
Well, Megan and Ellie, thank you for your presentation. I'd like to bring it back to the commission. Do the commissioners have any questions of staff?
One really quick, you said that the sensory kits are available for borrowing or purchase or?
So they're available for borrowing. So if you attend one of our programs or if you attend one of our events, you can submit a request or request it the day of and utilize it during that program or
During the
event.
event.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
So, first of all, congratulations and welcome, Nellie. And maybe Megan, you kind of answered this with having the sensory kits available, but we heard in the last presentation from Will and Kathleen that budgets are one of the concerns with our events. I would, I guess, ask and certainly encourage ways to think about how to make our current events more accessible to people in that community, just from, increase the number of events that they can participate in without putting a bigger strain on budget. I love that we have someone that is just thinking about that for the city. I think that's fantastic. So in addition to, those dedicated events, I would just encourage how can we adapt our current menu to that community as well.
Definitely. I got hired back in December, so since then, my main goal has just been to observe and absorb everything and take notes and see how we could improve, not just growing our adaptive programming, but also improve our current programs and events to have some type of accessibility or adaptive component to it without necessarily, buying too much, making too many expensive. It's just like a matter of modifying certain things to make it more accessible for the public.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Any more? Mike?
Hi, Nellie. Jason Blessinger. I was going to say, with the budget that you were just saying, Jeff, I know it's always difficult, and since you came from Sac State, and I know they do the all-in-rec, and I think Olivia still does it down there. Is that correct?
No, she
She left?
actually took over for her after she left.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
cool.
so I oversaw her department and then handed it off to another recreational therapist.
Perfect. I was going to say, you could definitely use and utilize Sacramento State as a tool for getting students to volunteer to help, because I know they're always looking for additional hours for internships and just, educational background. And to keep budgets low, that's a great way. I was just going to comment to do that. And I know I have a bunch of students in my class that are looking for that already. So
Yeah.
I'd love to get your contact information to do that.
Yeah,
so.
definitely. That's something that we've been definitely looking into, is how to recruit more volunteers, and that's definitely been something that's in my back pocket, just because I was the one who recruited those volunteers as well and trained them and onboarded them. My last semester that I was there, we recruited and trained over 90 volunteers. So we're hoping to have that same luck with this new venture.
Well, good luck with that.
Any further questions from the commission? All right, I'd like to open this item to public comment. Are there any comments from the public that would like to make it on this item? Hearing none, I will close public comment. And once again, this item is informational, and no action is required of the commission. The next item on the agenda is item number 7. Board member, commissioner, and commissioner comments. Any other reports from staff?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Jill Geller, your Parks, Recreation, and Libraries Director, and I'll make just a couple quick comments. First, I want to welcome everyone that's in the audience today. I think we have some Leadership Roseville attendees and a lot of students. So thank you for being here tonight. You learned a lot. We filled your brains tonight, didn't we, with a lot of great information. My thanks to staff for their excellent presentations and the excellent work that they do every day. The only things I wanted to add to that were some upcoming park dedications that you are aware of or may not yet be aware of. And the first one is the Crimson Ridge dedication, which is March 15th, Saturday, March 15th. Hopefully you all have this on your calendars. And then we have a couple others that are coming in the future that you have probably not received yet. We're still finalizing these dates, and we will get these on your calendars. But we're excited to reopen Weber Park officially. As Tara mentioned, we will have a soft opening very soon where residents can use it. But our celebration is tentatively scheduled for April 12th, and we will get that on your calendar soon. And then Denio Family Park, tentatively May 24th. So keep a lookout for those, but we'll make sure that we get those put on your calendar because we've got a lot of exciting things happening this year.
All right. Very well. Any further comments from staff? Any comments from the commissioners? All right.
I'd just say, a number of us were at the Chamber's Economic Development and Government Affairs meeting on Friday. Jill, you did a fantastic job presenting to that group on the economic benefits of our parks here in Roseville and how it even ties into attracting people from out of the city to come spend their tax or their discretionary dollars here. So just wanted to say, great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
And don't forget girls flag football.
I will not forget that.
Okay. If there aren't any further comments, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.